Welcome to the Centre for Legal Innovation's Legal Techy Tuesday series. We are very excited to have Nicola Shaver and Chris Ford, co-founders of Legaltech Hub, here with us today. Nikki and Chris will be discussing global developments in legal technology and also demonstrating the Legaltech Hub too. Again, welcome. Fabulous to have you all here. And now over to Nikki and Chris.
Thank you so much, Christine, and welcome everyone to Legal Techy Tuesdays. We are absolutely delighted to be here. We are talking today about the world of legal tech and how to have it at your fingers using Legaltech Hub. But first, a little word about us. Who are we? Why are we here speaking to you today? My name, as Christine said, is Nikki Shaver. You have a number of pictures on the slide in front of you to tell you a little bit about us. These scales of justice are the very cheesy way of saying I am a lawyer by background. In fact, I'm an Australian lawyer, although I may not sound like it. I went to the University of Sydney and I practiced for 9 years in Australia before moving over to the Northern Hemisphere, where we've now lived in Canada and in the United States, and where I got involved in legal innovation. Both of us come from a global background, which is why we have the globe here. And we are the parents of 2 little children, which means that prior to this, we finished our day jobs in the legal industry and then fed our children dinner. And we're hoping against hope that they don't interrupt the Zoom call. And Chris, you.
And now for proof that we are actually Australian, here I am.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer by trade, but I've been in the legal industry for a number of years in business development and marketing. Most recently at an ALSP with Axiom here in New York. And I'm presently the Chief Marketing Officer for a legal tech vendor called Xero. So we are absolutely delighted to be here with you.
So what are we going to cover today? We're going to give you a little bit about the Legaltech Hub origin story. We are indeed the co-founders of Legaltech Hub. We will tell you about the solution and how we developed it. We'll talk a little bit about the expertise that we gained and shared with the world, and hopefully provide you with some insights that have come from the very rich journey we went on during our data research. And then we're going to provide you with a little bit of a demo and a trip around the world and hopefully give you some time for Q&A. But before we got started, we thought this might be fun if we made it a little bit interactive. So even though we cannot see you, what we'd love is for those of you who are online who'd like to participate, if you could just throw a few key things into the chat and we'll come back to them later. And these will guide our demo. So what we're interested in is, can you think of the name of a legal technology vendor or tool or solution that has an unusual name? Maybe it's something that is spelt in a weird way. Also, can you throw in the chat a job that you might want a legal tech tool to do? So do you want it to help you with your defined terms? Do you want it to help you copy and paste? Then throw in the chat a functionality, something that you think is a regular thing that technology tools in legal do today. And finally, if someone or a few of you could throw in a country in the world, that would be terrific. I see some coming in now. Thank you so much for participating. And off we go. The Legaltech Hub origin story. So this all started with us identifying a problem in the industry. And the problem really for me was around something that I encountered on a daily basis in my job. What I neglected to mention before, I said I was in legal innovation, but I am currently the managing director of innovation and knowledge at a large law firm based in New York. But it's a large global law firm. And prior to that, I was the director of KM and innovation at a Canadian law firm in a very similar role. What I found was I was having a very difficult time finding the types of solutions that I needed. And there are a few reasons for that. So let's set the scene and provide some context. First of all, the rise of legal tech, as all of you who tune in regularly to Legal Techy Tuesdays know extremely well, has been absolutely exponential over the last, say, 5 years in particular. It's really just been a booming landscape with so many new tools and vendors in the market. And why is that? There's another thing that's been happening alongside it, which is an investment in legal technology that really was unprecedented before. In 2015, a venture capitalist was quoted as saying that they were just fundamentally uninterested in the legal technology market. It wasn't one where they thought it was really worth investing. They didn't really see it as viable. And then look at what we're showing you on the screen. In 2018, investment in legal tech hit $1 billion. Just this year, Brighter raised $66 million to take its solution to the United States. Billions of dollars are being invested in this industry. And one of the reasons for this, as many of you are no doubt aware, is there's simply increased market competition. And many of you are likely in Australia or in New Zealand. And these are particularly tight markets. And even when I was practicing there, we were aware that this was a very, very tight market. So much so that if you were practicing for a large law firm, for example, in order to get a larger share of the pie, you effectively had to take it from another large law firm. But now we're seeing competition from other sources as well. Of course, we have boutique firms that have been around for a while, but now we also have new law or designer firms. We have ALSPs that have taken far more of market share than we anticipated. We have legal tech vendors that are actually operating and able to take some of the work away from large law. So let's delve a little bit deeper into that. ALSPs, when they first came on the market, were really anticipated to play in a completely different arena than large law. ALSPs were considered to deal with high volume work that was not bespoke, not as interesting to the large law firms, for example. But that industry has grown substantially. It is well over, in fact, this says 11 billion, but I did some research the other day and I saw a number between 13 and 14 billion dollars. It's a massive industry now. It is technology enabled, which is why people initially suspected that this would be an area that really dealt with high volume, lower value work. But what we're seeing now is that ALSPs have been able to develop viable, proprietary, competitive solutions that allow them to actually take some of the market share away from large law. And that was not anticipated. The Big Four, of course, this has been something on everyone's radar for a long time. In the United States, for a long time, it was really seen as impossible for the Big Four to disrupt legal because unlike in Australia and the UK and various other countries, the legal industry is still very highly regulated. And for the most part, large law firms or law firms generally have to be owned by lawyers. But this is now being disrupted with various states, including Arizona and Utah and Oregon, gradually changing and passing amendments that allow for re-regulation of legal services. And the first non-lawyer run law firm launched earlier this year in the US. In Spain, and you can see a little chart up here, in the top 10 law firms by revenue in Spain, 4 of those are the Big Four. That's a really scary statistic. In Australia, the Big Four has been playing in the market for a while, and it goes back and forth as to whether or not this is going to be a viable competitor, but certainly it's in there. It's in the playing field. Insourcing, what you see on the screen is a question from the Altman-Weil study, which is conducted every year. And this asks law firm respondents, aside from your traditional law firm competitors, is your firm losing any business to other providers of legal services? What I think is so interesting here is that the top 2 responses are their own clients are taking work from them, partly because they are keeping work internal, and partly because they're using technology tools that mean that they actually have to send fewer parts of that work out to external counsel. This question on the screen before you right now is, I believe, from 2019. The last Altman-Weil study in 2020 showed that these statistics are increasing. So even though there have been some news stories recently to suggest that in-house counsel are not keeping as much work internally, law firms still definitely perceive, in fact, more so than they did a year ago, that in-house departments are significant competitors of theirs. And of course, the reason for that is that GCs are under tremendous cost pressure. And they are keeping more work internally. They are hiring in-house counsel, and therefore there is less of the pie generally to go around. So what are we to do in legal? And of course, what you see on the screen, what's touted as the remedy to all of this market pressure is innovation. But what does that mean exactly? Innovation is an empty buzzword unless you fill it with meaning. Well, a lot of it has been about legal technology.
And everything that Nicky's just mentioned about the way that the market has, trended in the last few years has sort of brought us to this kaboom moment in the last couple of years where, in just the space of a couple of years, that's $3.5 billion worth of investment. That's billion with an N. Everyone says with a B. I'm going to say with an N because that's true. But thanks to Jay for putting this terrific chart together. But it gives you a real sense of the exponential growth in investment from that moment, 2015, I think you said, where it didn't seem like a palatable place to invest, and now we're at this huge number.
And so legal technology is certainly part of what we talk about when we're talking about legal innovation and a remedy to competitive forces, automating part of the work, using AI technology to improve efficiency in the work, providing clients with additional value-added services, becoming real partners to clients in a way that perhaps the Big Four really just cannot be. But in order to play in this space, in order to delve into this technology, the process work, to really do legal innovation, you need new roles in law firms. You need legal operations roles in in-house departments. And a big part of what we do on our side as innovators in legal is try to figure out what are the right solutions for our environment, for our context. And some of the reasons we go out and look for legal technology are we may need to solve a problem. Someone comes to us, maybe it's a lawyer, maybe it's a client saying that they need help, maybe they have a need that requires addressing. Sometimes I need to put together a list of legal technology solutions to explain and showcase that, in fact, we've really looked at the market before pushing for a particular investment. So I need to prove that I really know the area and I've looked at the market. Sometimes we need to understand the competitive landscape of the market for certain types of technology tools. Or maybe someone mentions something, maybe a partner mentions something and says, I used such and such at another firm. And you quickly need to run and look up to understand what was he talking about again so that you can get on top of it. Sometimes you just need to know what's out there. Certainly one of the mandates I set for my team is that all of them are on top of the market consistently. You need to build expertise, prepare for a meeting, or perhaps you're even looking for a specific vendor because someone's mentioned it, or you remember you looked at it 2 years ago and you want to find it again. There are so many use cases.
So when you're looking for the right tool to like fix the right use case, it's hard. I mean, look, when you Google something, you don't know what search term to use. There is not traditionally there hasn't been a hard and fast set of functionality names or use cases to which you can solve. You have weird and wonderful names of tools, as we'll discover in a little bit, about that are really, really hard to find. When you find lists of legal technology, they're incomplete or out of date. And once you actually find a tool, a lot of the legal technology vendors, I should know, have websites that aren't exactly clear as to what they do and whether they can solve your case, or whether they're even for the legal industry. You don't know if it's fintech, martech, legal tech, and then you don't even know if it's meant for you as a in-house counsel, or if it's for a law firm, or whether you can actually believe all the, and I take great offense to the term, but marketing puffery. I'm a CMO after all. Marketing puffery that's out there on these sites. So how do you cut through it all to find what is the right tool?
And when we went out to look at directories, there are other directories on the market, but they were also inadequate for all kinds of reasons. So I used to go and look for things, but I couldn't find them still, even though the directories were out there.
Yeah, these lists were, you could read it yourself. They were very myopic when it came to regions. They included tools that were not focused on the commercial legal environment, like access to justice, which is terrific. But if you want to find a tool that solves a use case, you want a commercial legal solution. You know, a lot of them were not really well laid out and didn't have an enjoyable user experience. You didn't know, you know, what the taxonomies meant, what the functionalities actually meant, and it harkens back to my previous point about how you don't know what to search for on Google because you don't know what the functionalities are, and then it's hard to filter down to find the exact right tool. And Nikki mentioned that we'll at the end of this we'll be doing a bit of an exercise, and we'll see what we can do when it comes to filtering down through various different filters to find the right tool.
One example of this is, and you know, not to denigrate them, but the clock set out to create a directory for tools that were geared towards the corporate legal market a few years ago. But unfortunately, it's a pay-to-play environment, which you become highly aware of when you do a few searches and realize that of each of the 35 or 40 tools, many of them have been tagged with about 20 of the different categories or functionalities. And so the list you get upon a search is the same one to the next to the next. And it's harder if you're international. So this was something that I became very aware of, because as I realized this was a significant bugbear of mine, I went out to speak to people a couple of years ago. I was doing a lot of traveling in the industry and met a number of people from international firms who had clients they needed to service in 5 different languages. How do you find a legal technology tool that meets exactly the needs of your firm and is also not just available in all the languages you need it to be, but also has efficacy in all of those languages, that it actually works in each of those languages? It's very difficult unless you actually pick up the phone and speak at length to a vendor. So
how do we fix it? We decided to actually map out the entire legal tech ecosystem. I mean, this is born out of several conversations we had over several glasses of wine. But, you know, we wondered out loud why a proper searchable database of legal technology didn't already exist. And as we actually started to build it, we soon realized why, because it was really bloody hard to put it together. We imagined when we first put this, when we first thought of it, that we would be happy to launch with 500 tools. As you can see in this original search result screenshot we have there, we launched with over 1,600. And if you check us right now, and we launched in October of last year, so in 9 months, we've already grown by 138 tools to be a tick under 1,740 tools.
It was probably COVID that made us crazy enough to think that we should spend all of our free time doing this, our free time.
Yeah. So the way we went about it was, look, like the previous slide, we Googled stuff. We looked at various lists of existing legal technology. We ended up looking at thousands of different websites, because we had to verify that each one of these tools was truly a commercial legal technology tool, and it was still in business, that it was, it still had the efficacy that it purported to be on all of these lists. So thousands and thousands of websites that we had to trawl through to verify and put into the right functionalities, all of this data.
Even just going and doing Google searches for different types of functionalities, different types of tools, it took a very, very long time, and it really became our passion project. And we learned an enormous amount doing it. And one of the things that I recognize, someone who has a KM background as well as a legal background, I realized really early on that one of the key things would be ensuring that we have a really good taxonomy or series of taxonomies. Anyone who's worked in enterprise search, and I've worked on 3 different enterprise search implementations, knows that you need to think very carefully about which filters suit what type of content, making sure that the content that is responsive to those filters is actually tagged with the terminologies and the taxonomies in those filters. So it is directly relevant to a search that is pulled. So we very carefully thought about what were the right filters, what do people really care about when they're searching, what is the right taxonomy for functionalities. And we really approached this by ensuring that we were always keeping the user in mind, thinking about who our core demographic was, which is the commercial legal industry, as Chris has mentioned. Many of the directories include access to justice tools, and while we're big believers in access to justice, if we were building something for the commercial legal space, having those tools, and there are many of them in the mix, made it messy. So we wanted to make this very clean, very responsive to the demographic. And we went out and ensured that we were really reaching people. I used my network, and we had people from Australia, New Zealand, Asia, Africa, India, Latin America, as well as across North America, Canada, and the UK and Europe, who provided feedback on the taxonomy to make sure that it registered. And then you can see here an actual set of notes from when I was looking at our functionalities and trying to find a more user-friendly way of allowing people to search the site by use case, by folding the various functionalities under the use cases that where they would expect to find them. Complete with doodle, as Chris likes to point out, because I do like to doodle on all of my notes.
So what this has ended up providing, and one of the benefits to having someone like Nikki conceiving of this and starting to build it, is we take a real user-focused approach. We started with, wouldn't it be cool if Nikki had a tool like this to be able to help her in her job? And we maintain that sort of that approach, that philosophy when it comes to building Legal Technology Hub, because we want to make sure we make it very, very easy for the users to find the right tool, no matter where they are in the world, no matter who they are.
We also wanted to make sure that we were really supporting startups across the world. I think partly because of our international backgrounds, it was really important to us as we set out on this journey. One of the reasons for setting out on it was we felt that part of the world was really underserved by the way that the media was reporting on the development of legal technology, or the types of vendors that became particularly well known that tend to come out of the larger markets in the US and the UK. And we wanted to make sure that some of the smaller startups had a platform where you were just as likely to get them on a search for, enterprise search as you were to get iManage. So when we launched, we had Ilves, which is a Finnish enterprise search solution on the site, as well as iManage Insight. And they're competitors, but very few people have heard of Ilves, which seems manifestly unfair. It's a wonderful solution that works in both Finnish and English, and they have terrific clients. So we provided a platform where you're able to filter by platform language and by linguistic efficacy. So those two data points are rolled into one. But really what it allows for is if you are a Finnish firm or you're a Lithuanian firm and you need to offer technology in various languages, you can figure out exactly what are the tools that serve my purpose that also have that linguistic efficacy. You're able to filter by HQ, so you can see what the market looks like in a particular area. And just to mention, as we were gathering data, we realized the use cases I had set up before were for people like me, people who work in legal innovation. But for vendors entering a new market, for example, we recognized it was also really helpful for them to be able to say, I want to know how deep is the market saturation in X country for what I offer. And again, there really wasn't a good way of doing that before, but now there is. And in fact, we've had the University of Oxford ask us for data as well as other academic institutions, because there aren't that many platforms out there that provide that sort of rich information. You can filter by office location to see what your support will be like in your local area, as well as by target entity. So if you're a small law firm, you can see what solutions target, your environment. If you are a barrister, even, although I think we only have 1 or 2 tools for barristers on the site. If you're corporate in-house, you can target by that. And so when we went out, before launch, we actually pulled in a beta group to do some testing.
Yeah, luckily we're both fairly well plugged in with the industry, and we found a few users that we know who could really stress test the platform to help us figure out the bugs, but also not just the breadth of our information, but the user experience that we keep talking about, to make it easier and more focused on that user. So we had, luckily we had these fantastic contacts all around the world who were experts in knowledge, innovation, IT, practice of law, who were able to really give it a good test for us.
And as we developed, we realized that we also were able to track data that others may not be tracking.
You'll see when Nikki gives you a quick demo of the site that there's been a lot of deaths in the industry when it comes to legal technology, and there's been a lot of consolidation. So we've decided to track them. One of the things that we make sure that we do to stay, at the cutting edge is to consistently check to see whether all of our tools are actually still alive and still open. So every 2 months, we do a sweep, a check of all of our tools to make sure that they're still active and still in business. And the ones that we lose enter our graveyard section, and Nikki will show that to you. But since we launched in October, we've had 28 dearly departed legal technology tools leave us. And at the same time, yes, quite. At the same time, a lot of technology is being consolidated in the legal tech industry. Look, we all know about buying binges by companies like Litera, but yeah, we make sure that we keep our noses to the ear, to the grindstone of the news, and include all of the consolidations, all of the buying of legal technology by other companies, and we put them in the consolidation section. Since October, there have been 38 consolidations in the legal tech field that we've been able to track.
37 of those are by Litera. not really. It just feels that way.
Yeah.
We also started a place on the site where if you're new to KM or innovation and you want to know what you should be reading or listening to or watching, you can go and find out on the site as well. This came about, again, partly for me because I have many things that I like to read on a daily basis, and it was handy to have them all in one place. But also, I and many of my friends often will get students or others who are interested in the industry asking for lists of really good content. And it seemed, again, really useful to pull all of that stuff together into one place.
We also did a few regional snapshots. We divided the globe into basically continents, and we did a little bit of an overview, just a snapshot of what the legal technology industry, what the fields look like in each one of these regions. So we give you an idea of what's, where the burgeoning continents are, where the burgeoning areas are, even within each one of these continents and these regions.
And it was important for us as well as part of this. It's something that I believe in very strongly, to build community. So CLI, the Center for Legal Innovation, thank you for having us, Terry, is one of our co-collaborators. We think it's really important to develop partnerships in the industry and connect groups that are doing good in the industry and trying to provide resources that will help people on their innovation journeys. We have Ilvis and I Manage up there again to talk about how, whether you're big or small, we provide a platform. Free is up there because it is free to search. It's also free for vendors to post, to be up on the site. Although they can also pay for enhanced listings, which does cost something. We've partnered with Elwell, and the intent is to actually be able to give back to the community through any monetization that is created through the site. And we also have a partnership with Legaltech Jobs, which is a site created by a man called Dan Van Simpson, who's in Belgium. If anyone is looking for a job in legal technology or legal innovation, highly recommend that you check that out because he's terrific at really keeping that updated and providing a place for you to go and find where are the openings.
So I mentioned that we launched in October last year. We've had really good uptake of traffic, a lot by word of mouth. We've had a few different ways we've been able to reach our audience. We've had 120 countries visitors from 120 countries to Legaltech Hub since we launched. We've got tools from about 60 countries on the site right now. And we have a little bit of fun with our social media presence. I chuck up a different Boeing model for every time we reach a certain milestone for Twitter followers. That one was for when we had 787 followers. We are now well beyond that. Boeing will never be able to make that many models of airplane, but we've had a terrific response so far in the market.
Yeah, and speaking of response, we've had really good feedback and great press, which we were really happy with, including from the Legal Ops podcast. I'm sure friends of CLI, thank you for having us on early in the game. So in terms of what's next, we do have some additional developments. We launched our events directory in February of this year, which provides you with, again, a one-stop shop and a calendar to show you what events are coming up next and that are relevant to legal technology, legal innovation around the globe. It was, again, something that no one seemed to be doing, but a lot of people need to see at a glance what's coming up. We are going to be launching a consultants directory to provide consultants with a platform to be able to reach a larger market, but also to be able to allow people like us to find consultants more easily. And there are various others that we intend to develop as well. And then in terms of content, just to give you all a heads up that there is likely to be some much deeper analysis and data that is coming on the site. So stay tuned for those developments, as well as some other premium features, including the ability to compare technology tools and to add your ratings and reviews and see what others have said about various technologies.
I noticed you threw in a data bit.
I know.
Well done.
I switch it up. I even do that at work in the States. All right, so quickly before we get to our demo, we wanted to share with you some of the expertise that we gained from our efforts. One is it gave us some insight into why legal technology emerges in certain markets. I mean, it really is almost ubiquitous at this stage. We have a tool from Mongolia on the site. So really we're getting legal tech emerging all over the place, but there are certain regions where it's absolutely booming and others where it's still in its infancy, but bubbling away. One of the things that we noticed is the number of lawyers per population seems to have an impact. Obviously, regulatory changes. So where a particular region opens up from a regulatory perspective and allows for legal technology vendors to do more interesting things that sort of blur the lines between where law firms used to exclusively realm and where technology can now operate. Often where clients take the lead and really push for innovation, you'll of course then also see a higher volume of legal technology tools. A really good example of that is Brazil. Prior to Clock, clients in Brazil got very organized and decided that they were not going to have law firms dictate to them the way that fees were charged. And as a result, Brazilian firms are under significant pressure to drive efficiency and deliver work in different ways. And therefore, the technology market there is really significant. And there's an enormous interest in legal innovation and legal technology in Brazil. Interestingly, in various other Latin American countries like Argentina, you would expect that the same is happening, but not nearly to the same extent.
Yeah, there's a couple of anomalies we've noticed. Argentina was one. Italy is another one where big population, a lot of lawyers and law firms, but it just behind the curve when it comes to development. I mean, that we may be presenting an opportunity for someone in Argentina or Italy to to look at our site and say, look, this is an underserved market.
But I mean, Italy is a good example of some of these other factors where in Italy you have less interest in having or you have traditionally less interest in innovation and startups in the ecosystem. That's changing now. And so my guess is that we're going to see Italy start to evolve. But also the Italian language has less applicability beyond Italy. And so you're getting fewer cross-border deals for many of the Italian lawyers than you do for, say, Swiss lawyers or French lawyers. So the cultural landscape plays a significant part as well. Where there is a lot of support for startups, we do see a lot of legal technology, of course, along with startups in other industries. And one of the key things, which I think is really interesting, and I don't know how many of you listening are students, but the enthusiasm and proactivity of young lawyers and students is huge. Yep. So the rise of organizations like Legal Hackers is a huge indicator. If you look at how many chapters of Legal Hackers, for example, have evolved in various parts of Africa over the last few years, you will see the evidence of legal technology market that is really about to explode. Law students who become active and form student organizations that then perhaps grow into more established regional legal technology organizations, perhaps with conferences, where those conferences become established and start happening annually. That's another indicator that this is an area that is on the rise when it comes to legal technology. Twitter activity, I mean, social media is a really good indicator, as well as blogs. And what we start seeing first is courts become interested. So students and then courts. So A to J tends to be the first area where you really see evidence of legal technology in a market. And that brings us to our sort of maturity index. What comes first, the chicken or the egg, or AI? So access to justice always comes first in a market. What comes next is legal marketplace tools. So tools that are direct to consumer. Obviously, people looking for a lawyer, people looking for legal assistance who are not able to access it easily. Then we get into document automation and practice management tools that really all smaller law firms have to invest in at some stage. And then we start getting towards slightly more sophisticated tools with matter management, experience management, maybe some interesting knowledge management tools. And then we get into expert systems and automation, data analytics, and AI. And once you start seeing a proliferation of AI tools in a market, it's really an indicator that that market has reached some level of legal tech maturity. So with that, we are ready for our demo and a trip around the world. And I'm just going to see if I can check out our chat. Okay, I'm just going to stop our slide and, oh, why can't I? Christine, can I ask you to check and let us know what has been said in the chat, whether anyone's thrown any interesting terms up there?
I can. So we've got Joseph, automate simple systems and processes.
Okay.
Grouping of concepts. Australia.
Yeah.
Zakia.
Yeah.
And designer firms love it.
Sorry, what's that one?
Designer firms love it.
Designer firms. I know exactly who wrote that. I love it too. Okay. So I'm going to stop my screen share briefly so that I can move to a screen share of Legaltech Hub. So here we go. Here is Legaltech Hub. So I'm going to give you, I'm sure many of you who are on the call have seen this platform before, but let's just quickly do a little explore. So your legal tech resources, simple, they sit here. So this is where to find new things to read. Your regional snapshots sit here, and we'll take you on a tour of at least Australia and New Zealand in a minute. But your big call to action here is the search bar. And one thing that perhaps people don't realize is that you can just click on the magnifying glass and it takes you to a full list of the 1,739 tools. Once you're there, you can refine by adding search terms to the search bar, but you can also refine by adding filters. So the functionality filter, let's go to, let's say, a common one, practice management. And then you can, let's say we want to find something that works in multiple languages. So we want something that is English, but we want something that also operates in French. So you can see that we are down to 247 tools. And then I'm a corporate in-house department, so I want something that's geared towards corporates. So we're down to 88 tools. And perhaps we want to make sure that it can be deployed in the cloud. We're down to 49 tools. You can see how very quickly, by gradually applying the filters, you can get to a much more manageable subset of results that enables you to easily find exactly what you're looking for. And you can remove filters as well. So say I want to, now I've removed English, so we're only looking at those that are targeted at corporates, deployed in the cloud, and operate in French. So that is the way that the filters work. The other thing I wanted to show is browse by use case. So say you're looking for a knowledge management tool. You can either come here and click on knowledge management, or you can use the drop down, and here are all of the functionalities that we categorize under knowledge management, including a clause bank, content management, experience management, etc. But if I click on knowledge management, it takes me to a list where it's a saved search with all of those tags applied. And again, you can click in and out. So let's say, actually, I'm not looking for legal research or predictive knowledge or taxonomy. So again, here we go. It gets you to a much more manageable number. But one of the things that that I really like about this, and I have to say, I know I'm biased because it's our system, but I use this almost every day because I find it so useful. Someone said Zakia, and I think that is a wonderful example. If someone had said to me, I used Zakia at my last firm, and it was really useful, so I want to find it. I promise you, I would have come on here and gone, Zakia. And of course, there's nothing. But here, what if you think, well, I can't remember, how was it written? Was it with a Z, A? No. Was it with a S, A? No. Was it with a, what else could it be? Could it be an X, A? There it is. It allows you to find what you need. Another example I always use is Cicero, because I knew for the longest time that there were two tools called Cicero, but they were both spelled differently, and neither of them are spelled the way that you would think. So neither of them is S. Oh, here we go. Cici. I can never remember. There's Cicero. And then the other one is not S-I, but S-Y. Is that right? Cicero. There it is. So it just helps me. There's no way that you can do that on Google. So just a fun little thing to show you how useful that type of head feature is. And then let's say someone had said, I want to use this to automate small tasks. So automate tasks. Let's see what we get if we put that in. We get 0 right at the top. Look at that. So task management tools and automation tools. So again, and you're getting 18 results. And the reason these are coming up is because of the description in the detailed area here. So it actually talks about, you know, this is automating, and it's allowing you to focus on practicing law. One of the other things that we really love about the platform is that it provides you with similar results. So say you're looking for something like data extraction tools. And then you find luminance. Okay, I'm interested in something like this. I want to find what's in the market. I can browse and I can gradually go through a number of the different tools that do something really similar. And it's like going down a rabbit hole in Twitter or on Google. All right. So let's just show you quickly events. So the best way to search events is actually to click on the calendar. Let's say we want July because we're in July. And you can actually see on the calendar what's coming up. So we have, for example, Legal Week. The 5th virtual series is coming up this month in New York. We have notes in response to the pandemic. It's converted, Legal Week has converted its week-long in-person format to a series of virtual events. So I know it's virtual, and it allows me to visit the website and register. And I know that in earlier this year, we also had the CLI event up on the site. So that's a handy thing as well, that you're just able to, once you have a calendar view up, you can go back and click through the calendar month to month to see what's coming up in the next little while. And if anyone knows of additional events that they feel should be on the calendar, please let us know.
If anyone knows of additional tools that we don't know about, look, we are a truly democratic institution. We want to hear from you guys to make sure that we have the most comprehensive listing. So please hit us up to let us know if we're missing any tools.
We can then also go back to the list view here, and then you can filter here as well. And say you want to clear the search, there are 92 results, and we have different filters here because, of course, the types of data that people are looking for in relation to events are different than what they'd be looking for in terms of tools and technology. So if you're looking for something that is, say, innovation, you can just pull up innovation. You want something that is in, let's say, virtual, and you want something that is free. Let's see what's coming up. Oh, there's the Global Legal Hackathon. Unfortunately, that happened back in April.
How many events in Australia?
Oh, that's a good idea. Let's do that. And then we will go to Australia's. Actually, let's just go here. Location, Australia. So we have 4. Now, I'm sure there are many more than that. So all of you can help us populate this. And let's quickly go to the regional snapshots for the person who put Australia. Let's click on Australia and New Zealand. You can see that we have a little blurb about the state of legal technology and legal innovation in Australia and New Zealand. We have 97 tools here. And it's an interesting way as well of just looking at, what are the tools in the market at the moment.
These are the tools that are headquartered in Australia and New Zealand.
Right. So let's look at case management tools here, 6. So that is Legaltech Hub. I'm going to stop there because we have 10 minutes left and I wanted to make sure that we left time for questions. But if anyone would like us to perform any more searches while we are here live, please let us know. Otherwise, happy to answer any questions that you have about the data that the data research we did, the insights that we uncovered as we were doing it, the platform itself, anything at all. Please go ahead. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Nikki and Chris, for a very informative session. There is a quick question in the chat. What are your thoughts on building on non-legal specific tech tools like Google or Microsoft?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. We're very, it's called Legaltech Hub. So we very much try to keep it focused on the legal market. That doesn't mean that we don't include tools that also serve other industries. But generally speaking, when we get a vendor approaching us, what we do is make sure that they have a significant inroad in legal. So they don't just have one legal client, but they have enough legal clients to warrant a focus on legal and an understanding of the legal market. There are other ways to find generic tech tools, but we are broadening our directory to include tools that are not just for sort of KM innovation, but also for pricing and project management in legal, and ultimately likely MarTech as well in legal. So we're broadening the scope, but it's still very much the legal industry.
Thank you. There's another one. Are you limited to only selecting one primary and one subcategory for functionality?
No. Do you want to take that one?
No, you can choose multiple. So we would encourage everybody to just take for a test drive, stress test it yourself, choose multiple functionalities and sub-functionalities and see what you come up with.
But if you're a vendor asking that question, no, not at all. I mean, take a tool like HiQ. HiQ operates in multiple categories, and it wouldn't make sense to restrict it to just project management or just client portal. On the other hand, Chris and I do vet each of the vendor submissions to avoid the situation I mentioned previously, such as the one with Clock, where every tool is subscribed to every single category. They have to actually viably have an entrant in the market in that category in order to have it down as a functionality or sub-functionality.
Great, thank you. Thank you for answering those questions. It was really interesting to see how Legaltech Hub provides a means for legal professionals across the world to easily find the legal technology tools that suit their environment, all combined in a comprehensive directory of global legal technology with a powerful search functionality. So if there aren't any further questions, we will draw to a close. If anyone has any questions for Nikki or Chris after the session, they can be contacted on their website or on LinkedIn. A huge thank you to all of you who have attended today. As you know, the Centre for Legal Innovation is very much focused on these types of webinars, this type of information sharing, collaboration and experience exchange. We are all about practical solutions. There will be many more webinars coming up in the Legal Techy Tuesday series, so don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter or Facebook for announcements. We look forward to welcoming you back to one of our events, and thank you again very much for joining us today. Thank you, Nikki and Chris.
Thanks, Christine.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having us.